those days so long ago now, when skies were turning gray. Let's not forget how together we blew away the clouds to let the sun shine through.
Below the peaches in the glass house at Chiltern Gardens, rows of spring cabbage make sturdy progress. Growing this catch crop of early vegetables allows head gardener Harry Dodson to save the peach trees from being grubbed up as a wasteful luxury. A few miles away in the back garden of the house where she's billeted, Chiltern's land girl, Annie, plants marrows on the Anderson shelter. But for many in 1941, this crude structure was more than an extension of the vegetable garden. It was all that stood between life and death. Everyone was urged by the Ministry of Food to save kitchen waste. Joyce, the young evacuee billeted with Ruth Mott, puts the vegetable peelings in the special pig bin.
Well, it was the most important person about, really, because it ate up all your scraps, and you sort of thought eventually that you were going to have a nice meal off it, and some rashers and some different things.
The pigs were killed by an authorised slaughterman, but many housewives had to overcome their squeamishness to butcher the resultant carcass. Brought up in a large country kitchen, it's nothing new to Ruth Mott. Today she makes brawn from a pig's head.
The most peculiar thing about it really is the fact that you can use every piece of the pig. I mean, there's no wastage to pig at all. The only thing you basically can't use out of the pig is his squeak. I like brawn, but I do like to have made it myself. I wouldn't eat anybody else's. I like to know that his ear's been cleaned out properly and his nose has been blown and, you know, that his eye's been taken out. I usually soak it overnight with a handful of salt, which gets any sort of congestion of blood where it's been killed. That comes out, and then give it a good wash off, and then put it into the saucepan, and with carrot, onion, bay leaves, perhaps a few peppercorns, sprig of thyme, anything that will give it a nice flavour, and then cover it with cold water, bring it very slowly to the boil, and boil it. It usually will be ready in about 3 hours, but if you can tell, I mean, you can put a fork in it, or when it begins to come off the bone, then it's nicely cooked. We've got half a tongue because we only had half a head, so we've skinned that and we'll chop that up to go into the brawn as well. And with that we also boiled a little bit of shin to give it a little bit more meat, because pork heads, pig's heads are very, very fatty, so they're very, very rich, so you have to put something else with them to try and make it more, well, digestible. Well, you just put the head in its right position and start from the back of the neck. It doesn't work so well the other way, but then you get this nice stretch of skin. And if you've cooked it nicely, you should just be able to run your fingers underneath it and lift it very carefully off. We don't want to take any fat or any meat off with it, because we want to keep it all as intact as we can. And that is the best way to do it. And don't let it get too cold before you try to do it, otherwise it adheres to the head and you can't move it. So you want it really almost as hot as you can handle it. Now, we know that this isn't the stock that's reducing will be nice because my hands are sticky, and that tells me there's a lot of gelatine in the head, so we shan't have any bother setting it into the basin when we've just chopped it up as fine as we need it. Well, I love doing it. It's great. There's lots of worse things to do than this. The chitlins are much worse than this, I assure you. We're now going to pop it into the bowl, which has been stood for about an hour in very cold water, which seems to make almost like a skin round the bowl so that it will turn out nicely. And I like mine done this way because I don't like too much jelly in it. The jelly is very nice, but it's the meat you really want. You see too many lumps of fat together, just push them around out of sight somewhere. That's it. And we're just going to strain some of the reduced stock down into here. And what I do with mine, I do that so that you can hear it glove nicely down to bottom. And then fill up again till it comes up to the top of the meat. And then that can go into the larder and set itself. And that should make you a nice meal.
Lunchtime at Chiltern, and Annie goes to fetch her sandwich box. She knows there's a good chance it will contain cheese. It was valued by the Ministry of Food as a source of protein needed for building and repairing muscle tissue. So, while the standard ration was 1 ounce a week, all those engaged in heavy work were given a weekly allowance of 8 ounces. Making sandwiches palatable was a constant headache.
I know at one period the landlady said to me, "Do you like beetroot?" which I did. And I said yes, and I had beetroot and sandwiches day after day until I got that fed up with it. First of all, I started taking the beetroot out of the sandwiches, and in the end I had to tell her, "No more beetroot, please."
Then, in June 1941, came one of the turning points of the war.
At 4 o'clock this morning, Hitler attacked and invaded Russia. So now this bloodthirsty gutter snipe must launch his mechanized armies upon new fields of slaughter. We are resolved to destroy Hitler and every vestige of the Nazi regime. From this, nothing will turn us. Nothing. We will never parley. We will never negotiate with Hitler or any of his gang.
To help Russia, Britain had to produce more than ever before. Growers were pressed to increase their yield of staple crops, potatoes and wheat for bread. Blight was the great scourge of potatoes, and Harry makes up a fungicide to combat it. Overnight, he has dissolved copper sulfate in water.
Now, the next ingredient is the soda crystals, which are going to be dissolved in this bucket of clean water. Again, it is rainwater. It gives one a better spread when you start to spray. And then the old, when it's mixed together, makes a jolly good prevention cure for potato blight.
This old recipe produces a spray known as burgundy mixture. Its name comes from its discovery in France as a treatment of mildew on vines.
Oh, Annie, give me a lift under my shoulders with the knapsack, will you, please? Lift it bodily up. That's my arms through that. Yeah.
Is it strap?
That's right.
Is that
All
comfortable?
right, thank you, Annie. Well, I'm on my way, and you can carry on with your rowing, if you will, please. This old knapsack sprayer is very heavy to wear. It's a burdensome bit of equipment and it doesn't fit nicely and comfortable to you. That coupled with the weight makes it after a time very uncomfortable, and about an hour to 2 hours at the maximum is the length of time that I would care to use it. Again, you must remember, in those pre-war days, there was no restriction what poison you was using or anything. There was no law and order that you had to dress up like a spaceman before you went out to do it. So you went out in just your shirt, as I am today. And after quite a short space of time, it cut into you quite a bit.
1941 proved to be a good year for potatoes.
Here's the man who ploughed the field. Here's the girl who lifted the yield. Here's the man who deals with a clamp, so millions of jaws can chew and champ. That's the story. Oh, and here's the star, Potato Pete. Eat up. Ta-ta.
Potato Pete, see him coming down the street, shouting his good things to eat. Get your hot potatoes from Potato Pete. Now hear him sing as he goes by. All the kids adore his cry. Love to hear him shout hi hi. Eat your hot potatoes coming by, by, by. Have them in the packet, take them home to Ma. Have them in the jacket, or eat them where you are. He might say a lot, so don't be late. If you haven't got a penny piece to put it on the plate, now it's Potato Pete, Potato Pete. Now he's going down the street, shouting his good things to eat. Get your hot potatoes from Potato Pete. Potatoes, potatoes, big or small, short or tall, Potato Pete has got them all.
Appointment with fear. This is your storyteller, the man in black. Here again to bring you another placid evening in our Far Side series, Appointment with Fear.
One enterprising collection of recipes gathered together contributions from famous people. Agatha Christie submitted one entitled Mystery Potatoes.
6 good-sized potatoes, 4 tablespoonfuls of cream, a little margarine, 10 anchovies. Bake the potatoes in a moderate oven, then cut them in half. Remove insides and mash them with the margarine. Chop up the anchovies and mix them in. Add cream and pepper and salt to taste. Turn mixture to empty potato skins, dab on top with margarine and brown in a hot oven.
Slowly, very slowly, you begin to realize it's a room you've never seen.
Storing potatoes is tricky. Too cold and they freeze, too dry and they shrivel, too light and they turn green, too hot and they sprout. Clamping was the answer.
The potatoes were shot up on this wad of straw. They were brought up picket fashion, like the roof of a house, up to the height of roughly about 3'6", and then a good lot of straw, or bracken in some cases, was placed over that to the depth of almost a foot, and then a foot of soil was packed over that, and they was quite safe in that sort of conditions right around until February, March.
An old drain pipe allows the potatoes air to breathe.
There'd be a gang special to do what we're doing, and they were real masters at it.
Do they build much bigger clamps than this?
Oh yes, I've seen them almost a mile long.
Mrs. Moss, I've got the hay.
Thank you. Oh, that's nice. That's Tinker Tailor hay, isn't it?
Straw or hay were also put to good use in the kitchen, with the revival of another old practice. The hay box allowed dishes to carry on cooking after they'd been taken off the stove.
Right, well, we'd better get started, I think. Give me some handfuls of, not too much, that's right, because we've got to pack it a bit in the bottom just to start off with. Although the cushion's nicely in the bottom, so that one. This is just sort of an improvised one, but it'll do the trick, I think, all right. And then I want to do some that way and that way, because the grass has got a thick end and a thin end, and then it'll keep it packed in tight. Otherwise, if we get any air in, it won't stay nice and hot. One more piece, and then I think I can put the saucepan in now.
Will it cook?
Yeah, provided we boil it up well for about 3/4 of an hour, so that it gets heated right through, because you only go on cooking with as much heat as you've got here, you see. So we pack that into there, and then if we pack the rest of the hay around here.
A tight-fitting nest provides the insulation, which conserves the heat.
You can do porridge and that like this as well, you know.
Really?
Oh yeah, rice pudding and anything that wants a long, slow cooking will do fine like this.
Save on fuel then.
Oh yes, that's what part of the object is, isn't it? And that cooks while you're going to bed.
By late summer, marrows and nasturtiums trail luxuriantly over Annie's Anderson shelter.
Oh, that bus is always late.
So hungry.
Will you start and lay the table then, and I'll go and see to this
Right.
old hay box and see how we're doing over here.
A wartime instruction book lists the advantages of the hay box. The cheapest cuts of meat are rendered tender, no nourishment is lost, no food can be overcooked or burnt, and the flavours are much improved by the slow cooking. For Ruth and Joyce, there's a hot dinner to look forward to. rice pudding and mutton dressed up as mock venison. But that night there's no illusion about the news.
Japan's long-threatened aggression in the Far East began tonight with air attacks on United States naval bases in the Pacific. Messages from Tokyo say that Japan has announced a formal declaration of war against both the United States and Britain.
When we look back now, 2 years gone by, to a dark and stormy sky, do you remember how we survived? Come rain or shine, it turned out fine. Though the memories are fading of those days so long ago,